right, welcome back to One Up Yours. This week is 14th of July. It's good to see you on the One Up Radio Network. Got a special guest today sitting in for John, who's out on vacation.
I don't know about special, but guest nonetheless.
It's good to have you here, man. It's Mark McDonald. And we also have Luke Smith.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, yeah. It's not quite afternoon. We're doing this before lunch on Friday morning, and
special guest Shane Bettner.
Stop, Christ.
I knew you wanted to go there. That's why I had to let you have that lead there.
Thanks.
All right, so pretty good show today for you coming up. We're going to have the typical What You Been Playing segment in the front side. We also have, since we have Mark here, we're going to dig back into the Pile of shame.
I have a huge pile of shame. See how many games I have that I haven't played.
Psychonauts, so we'll be into that. We'll get into your all question of the week responses from last week. Then we'll move into the second segment. We're going to go. Yesterday, we spent most of the day at Electronic Arts, except for Luke. Luke wasn't there. He was doing the
bailed
news thing
last minute
Shane
as usual.
was there.
So we're gonna loop Skip in because Skip was down there with us. Hit a lot of the EA stuff that was down there. We'll also touch briefly on Saints Row because Saints Row was on display earlier this week as well. And then in the final break, we'll bring Luke back and do like the whole big news blowout and get into some more arguments and go from there. Right?
Yes.
All right. So where are we going to start here? I know we're going to talk about some Chrome Hounds. I've been playing Chrome Hounds. Luke's been playing Chrome Hounds.
Yeah, let's talk about some Chrome Hounds.
I don't get it. I don't understand. If you look at message boards, it appears that people are enjoying this game.
All right, so
Oh my God! They're like
here
very
is.
confused.
So I reviewed Chrome Hounds for EGN. I gave it a 5. Here is the caveat, and I told you this. I talked to Luke about this before the game came out. If you have 5 friends that are going to get on Xbox Live, they're going to customize their mech, that are going to like talk to you offline about, okay, we're going to get on at 3 o'clock. You're going to be the sniper. You're going to go up on a hill. I'm going to back off. If you have like that kind of coordinated, dedicated group of friends, the game it's actually worth playing. It's a fun, cool mech game.
You realize the statement, if you have 5 friends who want to play Chrome Hounds, that applies to maybe one person in the world.
Well, apparently, like
At least one live.
6 people on the message boards, like Shay Chow being one of them, right?
Galvanized gaff.
Right. Well, so the thing is, you play these roles kind of like Team Fortress, where one guy can be a sniper, one guy can be a bomber, and it is. In theory, the multiplayer is very cool because, there's different parts with the communication. Like, you can only talk to people after you take over these towers, and you have to communicate even who you are because the mechs look so similar. So people literally flash their headlights. Like, they say, you in section C6, is that a friendly or an enemy? And people will flash their headlights twice if they're friendly.
See, that's kind of cool, but kind of terrible.
Well, right. Exactly.
Wait a minute. How is it both?
Well, it's poor game design, and it's like people thinking around it, and it's like a real-world workaround, but that's retarded at the same time. Like, you should be able to tell who's on your team.
Well, so
because that's how it would be like if you're on a battlefield. You'd be able to tell.
It's the future.
Away.
There's mechs. I believe in like radar. I don't know.
So there's a lot of things like that though that are cool but also suck. So your mech moves at like the pace of a
snail's pace.
Yeah,
really.
three-legged.
Totally depends on the base.
Turtle.
Like ultimately, with this game, I think if you are somebody who's ever been compelled to play an Armored Core game, then maybe you'll like Chrome Hounds. But if you're like a regular person who likes like regular shooters, it's probably not your cup of tea.
Right, and they're both from Software, so they have the thing where you can customize the hell out of your mech. This one's a little bit better than Armored Core, but it's still like the part that was a real pet peeve of mine was all the part names. I don't know if you've dealt with this yet.
Yeah.
If you've tried building, it's like SPRF 9707, and
ridiculous.
You're comparing that to
what the hell is
SPRF 9703 in like weight and range.
But I got to answer something Shane said first. If you're like a shooter fan, why the hell are you buying a mech game anyway? It's not. That's not the point.
Pickens.
God, why would you serve him up with that?
Because it's
Like,
right down the
why do
middle.
you pitch me another one there?
That's such a Shane bullshit. I don't like the 360 answer though. I mean, that's not an answer. If you don't like mech games, you're not going to buy the game. So it's
the same reason I don't play Armored Core on PlayStation 2 is because there are hundreds of games for me to play instead. When there's only one game.
This is like last week. He's slapping around Prey for 10 minutes.
Prey.
He's all like, I would play.
I'd rather play Prey all day long.
Oh God.
That's not the point. The game. So, like we were talking about the moving speed, right?
Yeah.
There are different bodies that you can combine to put together some.
But that's true, and like we were saying earlier. So again, that's something that is. And especially in single player, like, do not buy this game for a single player game. But like you said, that's cool and it's terrible. So is the speed, because it is really bad when you have to get across a map, and especially then your legs get injured and you move even slower. I mean, it has to be one of the slowest moving games. It is slow.
You know what this game feels like to me is Front Mission, but with you actually playing the mechs. especially with the whole like putting together all the different kits on the mechs.
Kind of looks like Front Mission too.
It totally looks like Wanzer.
Well,
I meant graphically. Not design.
Again, also true, except for the explosions, which are like
Good. But like the environments
unbelievable.
don't look good at
Really?
all.
The environments kind of look like model railroad towns.
That's a good like.
It's not like
totally
little.
what they look
It needs like little people running
It's a little
around.
sparse, I think.
But just to finish my point about the slow moving, while that does suck, at the same time, if you're in a scout or a zippy vehicle, like there's a reason to be a scout. There's a reason to just zoom in, radio positions of other people and then get out. And then the really slow moving ones, you can have somebody, get up on a hill and just scout and say, okay, enemies in sector A6. And somebody who can't even see the enemies just sits back and is launching these huge missiles at them, like bombing them. That's kind of cool.
And isn't that what's cool?
Yeah, but see, this is what I wanted to talk about because, like, conceptually, that is cool.
Right.
And the way the game's being supported by Sega is really cool. Like, Sega's updating their Chromehounds page with the way that this campaign is, unfolding, and you have these like clans taking over parts of the maps.
Right. There's like a persistent world going on.
It's like it's totally a persistent MMO
it does
type
like resets
environment.
itself every month, right? There's like monthly.
No,
Right.
it resets itself when one side wins.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I think there might be some kind of time limit.
But there's a reset this week.
Yeah.
because people just got it and people
So
are
it's kind of like
starting to
Steel
go on.
Battalion, actually, in a lot of ways. Steel Battalion
Right.
also really slow. Steel Battalion had this sort of persistent world thing going on. But again, like I said, like it all comes back to, that is really cool in theory. But unless you have 5 guys, if you just find 5 random people on Xbox Live, I mean, you know how it is from Halo.
Yeah.
4 out of the other 5 guys are going to run straight at them and just like start
Why is that a knock against the game?
Like
That's the way it's made.
Well, a friend of mine was talking to me yesterday about it. He's trying to review the game, and he says that right now online it's almost unplayable because every random person you meet will disconnect because they don't want to lose. He says it's like really rampant.
And
right now.
there's no. I guess I forget what the penalty there is.
I guess there's not much of a penalty.
There must be.
Well,
some.
no. If your capital city or something gets conquered, you can't buy like parts from it anymore, and you have to like change your allegiance to other factions. There's a lot of like really dynamic shifting stuff that people are talking about online.
So what we want is games that don't require intelligent people to play them and don't foster group play.
No. So, but here's the thing: you have to it's that difficult, to expect that out of the average player that they're going to put up with communicating position, flashing their headlights, and doing that stuff. Like, there's a threshold beyond which it's like, okay, this would be great if with people who are going to do it, but you have to review. You review the game in potential, but you also review it in real world terms, right?
Sure.
Like it could be the super most complicated, amazing game, but you might still knock it for being too complicated, even if its potential is really.
Sounds like you're backing off a little, to me at least.
Backing who, me?
Yeah, it sounds
backing
like
off
you're
of the
backing
5.
off that 5 a little.
No, absolutely. The single player game, we haven't even said a word about the single player game.
It's a disaster.
It's worthy more than it deserves.
It's worthless. It's beyond worthless. It's terrible. I mean, it's really bad. And like I say, unless you have those 5 or 6 people, and most people are not going to have those 5 or 6
It's a
people.
really niche title. I mean,
The graphics are still not good. The story
unless
is still
you
terrible.
feel compelled to play a serious mech game, just steer clear of this thing. That's my advice.
Well, you know what? I feel compelled to find a squad and try it out because I like the idea of getting to play in like a team group. I like the idea of having to work together. That's why people play Counter-Strike.
Yeah.
Why people play any number
Rainbow even back in
Rainbow
the
is
day.
like that.
And
Definitely. I was trying to think of like Splinter Cell. Splinter Cell in a way you have to play like that too.
And if I get word of like you and Che and I can get 5 people together like that,
well,
I
I'll be
will
honest.
play it.
Garnet, Che, me,
Right.
a couple kids from Gaff.
That's what we want to do, and I want to check it out like that. And you know what? It'll take a while to filter out the bullshit. It'll take a while to filter out the people who are getting on right now and are realizing, you know what, this game's way over my head, and then they'll go away, and the people who are left playing it.
And
will
the
be
8 of
ones-
us, and the 8 of us.
Yeah,
are
and then the
still
20
playing.
people worldwide that are left, like you'll all schedule a time to
yeah,
play.
is it popular right now on Xbox?
2 weeks later,
Live?
they'll turn off the server.
Are a lot of people playing it that you've seen? Or?
I don't know. You said, what did you say earlier this week? That it wouldn't sell 100,000 copies.
I don't think it can sell 100,000
I don't-
copies.
it
at all.
probably won't.
No.
I disagree.
But when I was playing
think it'll sell
Prey
100,000.
multiplayer earlier this week, everyone who was on there was talking about how much they wanted to play Chromehounds, which I was totally surprised by.
Because, like you say, people are looking for the next thing, and even with the mediocre scores that it's getting, and it's been getting them pretty universally from
Chromehounds got an 8 from GameSpot.
it's getting like
You got an 8 from us too.
Yeah, 8 from us, 8 from GameSpot, 4 from Eurogamer.
I like to.
Got like a high
Euros
7 from
difference
IGN,
scale.
I think, and
I'd like to talk to all these fans in about a month and see how much of them are still playing Chrome.
Well, maybe they're not playing the persistent part. I mean, there is a whole multiplayer suite of just go in and play it like a normal game, like King of the Hill, Capture the Flag, Deathmatch, all that kind of stuff.
Right.
Maybe they're just playing it that way.
See, that's
And
stuff I
Shane,
would want to play.
as you have proven with Splinter Cell Subsistence multiplayer, like it doesn't. If you're not playing it a month later, apparently that doesn't mean you can't give it a.
You
great
mean Metal
score.
Gear, right?
Oh, Splinter Cell.
Yeah, you were thinking about a game with like good multiplayer. I got it confused with Metal Gear.
But yeah, I officially deem Chromehounds a non-issue, and everyone will forget about it in a week.
You know how you can tell when you got Shane beat when he just sidesteps and keeps on going past the Metal Gear slap. It's like,
I don't talk about Metal Gear
I got nothing to say about
with
that
anybody
one.
anymore.
All right, so if you're not playing Chromehounds, then Shane, what the hell you have been playing?
Well, I've been playing a lot of games to review, a lot of RPGs, which is keeping me up late at night, like Valkyrie Profile 2, Samaria, and Disgaea 2.
Did you play the original VP?
I did, yeah. I reviewed the PSP version last month. You can see me talking all about it on this month's this week's
Wow,
show.
you blah 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 blah.
I'm totally vindicated with my score. I'm right. Everyone else is wrong.
You were right about the
course I was right.
the graphical
I'm
differences.
always
by the
right,
way.
Mark.
Yeah.
Oh my god. Oh god.
But also, last Saturday, all of us were at
Smell that, Luke? You smell that?
Last Saturday, all of us were at California Extreme. It's this awesome classic arcade and pinball show that's held every year in San Jose, and we had a ton of fun playing pinball games and classic arcade games,
Warlords.
and random crazy games.
Sinistar, I think, was my favorite game that I ended up.
All right, but I got to give it up
Yeah.
first since we're diving into this, dude. Luke, right there. I mean, you guys
That's
should all
Shane.
know Shane is the pinball man.
Well,
He's
Mark
the-
is also the pinball man, but
Dude, you walked into a machine you didn't even play and were like rolling the score up. on it. I was
we're playing.
impressed.
I had never played South Park before, and it's actually a pretty cool game.
I was truly impressed.
And it has like the easiest, best multi-ball ever. It's like you said, like, what is this, fucking pachinko? Because it's like 30
Yeah, it's
balls.
insane.
It's great. But yeah, if you're in the Bay Area next year, you should go. It's awesome fun.
Yeah, it happens every summer.
And you can meet Shane Bettenhausen from EGM.
What'd you like about
TV's
Sinistar?
Shane
Have you not played
Bettenhausen.
Sinistar?
And
I'm
the
a lot,
Knight Rider.
I'm a lot younger than you.
Hunger.
Yeah, I hadn't played it, and the thing was, it was really quiet. Like the cabinet was really quiet because it was so loud elsewhere, and I hadn't played it. And like Mark and I stood and played through it, and he turned in like his greatest game of Sinistar ever.
Yeah, seriously, I don't think I'd
pretty
ever
good.
made it to like wave 3 before.
Yeah,
it
it
was
was-
always get to the second wave and then get eaten over and over. But
That'd be a great game to put on Live Arcade, though.
it would be a
Seeing the
great
way
game.
that seeing the way it works, like
Midway
I
is
would
putting
totally
stuff
control
on.
with dual analog. You could totally do it.
Absolutely,
and it would be
yeah.
a really cool title to put up there.
When I was a kid, there was a 7-Eleven down the street from me that had that and Dragon's Lair, and it was an easy choice. I was not pouring the quarters into Dragon's Lair.
I had a friend that had a Sinstar machine. You couldn't really hear it, but like that game's big claim to fame was it had that voice. And I had a friend that had a Sinstar stand-up arcade cabinet, and he left it on even though it was totally
Sinistar.
busted. And then just every once in a while, randomly, like 2 o'clock in the morning, we were watching some movie, and you just hear like, "Beware, I live," or "I hunger." You know, you'd be like up in the morning and hear that random
It's an awesome
stuff.
voice.
It was
Yeah.
fun. Yeah, it's totally memorable.
And that certainly wasn't the star. I mean, us four sitting around this table, we know what we played the most of while we were there.
Warlords.
Absolutely.
Well, I played a lot
yeah.
of Warlords, which is always good. But we also found this crazy game from Japan called Panic Park. It's really hard.
That was so
It's really hard to
awesome.
Yeah.
describe, but it's kind of like God, how do you even describe this thing?
There's only 2 controls on it. There are 2 levers that stick out.
Right, and you grab with one hand, and the other opponent grabs the other one, and like you're fighting, pushing each other, and it's really just like as hard as you can push into the other guy.
Yeah.
and like it
It's
corresponds.
like a test of strength.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
corresponds
the
to
handles
these-
are on a single
to
track.
characters on
Right.
screen. You're trying to avoid all these pitfalls and collect things, and you can push his character into obstacles and ruin his chances. It's super fun. We played it for like
There's
an hour.
actually a picture. Somebody did a feature on OneUp. Chris Kohler did one about new controllers,
Oh, cool.
and there's a picture. I'd never heard of it or seen it before that.
Apparently,
and there's a picture of it
incredibly
on, in
rare.
that feature.
Yeah, someone was telling me this, that it's really, really rare, and it's amazing that it was there.
We
Yeah.
should try and get one at the office.
We should. It was super fun.
It was really fun.
Yeah.
See,
We
it was
tested
like
Strength Friday.
it was like a Wii game in that you see it and then you have
But
to
it's 10 years old.
play it. Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's how we
It would make a good game.
Oh, it looks like a Wii. Oh, great.
So arcade games and review games. You don't have anything else you want to share with us?
That was good.
That's
talking
a
about
lot,
California
dude.
Extreme. That was a
That was pretty
Look
cool.
at that.
that was,
We had a good
that was a
time
lot of
with that.
fun.
That was good times.
All right, so last week on the show we did the question of the week, and it was about how much of Luke's crazy stories and travails with the PR business do you really want to know about? And we got a lot of good feedback from you guys.
You know what? I'm going to guess here that the answer to that question is because you asked like, do you want to hear about
Right.
it? Right. I'm going to guess that the answer by and large was yes. We want to hear about it.
No, I do not want to know what's really going on.
some people.
You got to ask the question this way. You don't ask, "Do you want to hear about it?" Because people are going to say yes.
Right.
You say, "Would you rather hear about that, Or do you want to have us talk about like games and game related things? Because that's what it like practically works out to, right?
Right.
Right. So if you listened to the end of the podcast last week, it was also a function of we thought we knew what the question of the week was, and we got there and we were like, oh, yeah.
But I think
today
that
we
stuff
have it
is
written down,
interesting
by the way, folks.
and worth
It's written down right
definitely
here.
worth talking about. But
Yeah,
I just
but
think like it's kind of a leading question.
Yeah, well, that's like it was totally kind of a leading question, but there was some good dissension too.
All right, so let me give you some pieces from some of the things folks wrote in. So and one thing amazed me was a lot of the folks who answered this question, you looked at like their post count, and they were like 1 post, 2 posts. They were like people who came in just to get in on this discussion.
It's a very serious question.
Yeah, it's totally a hot topic. So the time that binds. He pointed out that he'd like to know when companies are handing out exclusive things to magazines in exchange for positive press because it kills their credibility. And if you expose that, then it's going to hurt games journalism at first. But the pressure is applied by gamers on the press, and PR companies will cause game journalism to be honest and trusted by gamers again. So, I mean, I don't know. Is that how you approach it, Luke?
I don't know. Like fundamentally, I think my approach is that I have a huge problem with the notion of like information as an exclusive. Like I understand from the PR and the publishing perspective why you would put why you would outsource an exclusive review, but more and more we've been seeing things pop up on websites where it's like a website will have X information exclusively, and as a result of that exclusive, the PR companies don't talk about it, and that's something that I think is fundamentally flawed about the way that these PR designs are working.
Something I always thought about the exclusive review as opposed to just any exclusive is it's not as much of a disservice to the reader when the other reviews still come out at or before the game comes out, but when the only review that you're getting, and this happens a lot with Rockstar games actually, the only review that you're getting of a game is the one that was a deal set up through the exclusive review, then you have to like question, then you have to wonder, that's granting an exclusive and limiting other.
PC gaming had that problem for a long time, like you'd have like the exclusive on the Doom 3 and big shooters like that.
Right.
So the magazines would be arguing and they'd have the review up like they'd have it in print before the game hit the shelf, so how early it was when they were writing
I
it.
think the most legendary example of that would be Enter the Matrix. I mean, it's a game that was really, really bad, and the first review was a positive review. So, I think a lot of people bought it because of that.
Well, yeah, and you bringing up PC reviews reminded me of something. A lot of times they control like the environment, right? I mean, a lot of how like going down to id to play Doom 3, they have you in their special like enclosure on their kick-ass machine, their huge widescreen mega monitor. Their screaming GeForce, whatever the hell,
Serving wenches
these days. Yeah.
Oh yeah, and the whole time they're bringing you chocolate cookies and feeding you all the things you can drink.
Erotic massage.
They're recreating the atmosphere of your basement at home, but with tech
and better.
Well, he had a hell of a good mom, didn't he? Took care of him, bring him cookies, all that stuff.
awesome.
She is awesome.
Don't bring Luke's mama into this.
I was bringing it in a positive way, man. Come on,
I will kill you, Shane.
I wasn't going to go there. So I think, though, what you were saying, so this guy Fishbone to her kind of agrees with you. He says that exclusivity with regards to journalism should not exist, mainly due to the fact that all exclusive news, either in a magazine or a website, is spread throughout the internet within a matter of hours, including pictures in magazines because they just get scanned in. So he says, basically publishers should just give the information to everybody at the same time because seriously, a couple of hours of waiting will not increase subscriptions and it won't cause any of the drama that Luke might have to go into.
See, but that's not true because even the less scrupulous sites out there will usually report on a big exclusive where it came from. If the new EGM comes out and it has like Halo 3 pictures in it, a lot of times, even if they're scans, that it's from EGM. So that lends, a cachet to EGM. You might be more apt to get an EGM subscription out of that. I mean,
still easier to walk into the bathroom with your EGM than your laptop.
Right. Well, yeah, that too. But exclusives do exist. They exist for a reason, even when that information gets out in the next couple hours, and they're going to exist. It's exclusive reviews, I think, that are more kind of a gray area right now.
Red Swirl hit us with a few questions, and we can get into these more later on, Red Swirl. I'm going to throw them out there now, and we'll bat them around for a bit, but some of them are really good. We might have to come back to them. One of the things he gave us was he wants to be into, and apparently a lot of folks who read on our forums have this notion that they want to be in the game journalism business. So, he'd like to see as much of the seedy underbelly as he can get, but he'd also like to know some of what it's like. So, what are some of the stuff that you've had to deal with in dealing with the PR folks, and what gives you a headache the most when you go home at the end of the day? What gives you a headache the most when you go home, Luke?
I don't I don't know that this
Probably
is
when you do go home, it's probably the worst headache. I mean,
Yeah.
the time you normally get home at night.
probably like 7:30 or 8 most days.
That's not so bad.
I mean, somewhere
Yeah.
around there.
That's completely
I usually
reasonable.
see you here around 7:30 or 8 at the office still.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. The things that bother me the most, I guess, are probably just a lot of the things I've talked about before. Just feeling like, having like bad relationships with PR because they'll assume one thing, and I don't want to go into a whole lot about it this week just because I feel like I've talked about it so much over the last few weeks. But like for people who are like, oh, I want to get into game journalism and I want to be a game reviewer, like it's like the grass isn't always so green. So it's great and it's fun and I love my job, but it's also, I think that the way that a lot of the people, especially a lot of the people here at Ziff, the way that they approach it is they only know one way to do it, and that's like just to go after everything constantly. And this sort of the only like real danger in that is that when stuff goes wrong, it's like more devastating because there's no one that's going after anything like half-assed. Everything, like I know for me, everything is always like, to the hilt. Like there's no middle ground. And so I think that for me, that's what makes things frustrating is when, things don't go the way that I want them to do, or if I'm having I had a long conversation this week with representatives from a PR firm to sort of like talk about so that they could get to like know how I felt more about the industry, because a lot of these companies, all they know me from is this and my blog, which are both pretty vitriolic most of the time. And in fact, I'm pretty reasonable.
He's a nice guy.
People question your motives. They think you're just like out to get them. I think that's not true. You're just trying to report on what's really happening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you know what? I'll pick it up for you because this week especially, there's a lot of PR people who listen. So PR people that are listening, stop sending notes that reassure me that you're not trying to shape our content, because you know what?
Right before they try to shape the content.
Exactly. It's such bullshit. There's nothing that drives me crazy worse than someone saying, "Hey, I'm not trying to shape your content," because I know the next word out of the mouth is but.
Right.
And it's bullshit. Just say it what it is. One of the people who I was looking for it right here is that of course PR people are trying to shape content. By the way, that's the job. So don't be disingenuous about it. Just respect what we're doing and talk to us about what we're doing. And you know what, we're going to do what we do. If you don't have a comment, don't make a comment. If you want to say, I don't have a comment, hey, that's what the White House says all the time in press briefing. That's the way it goes when you're handling with the press. But don't send me these retarded things. Oh, trying to say that you're not trying to do what you're trying to do.
It's shaking.
Calm
down, man.
I'm over it. It's like, it's so obnoxious. Just be honest.
You've sort of lit a fire.
Yeah.
One thing I want to talk about,
Because I've read so many of them in the last week.
a couple of people were really concerned, and Beige, I think, was one of them who mentioned it, was he posed an interesting question of, if all these companies stop talking to Luke, does Luke still have a job? And I think that's like that's probably a really good place to run away from this discussion.
Well, you don't have a job anyway. I mean, John's already fired you twice on the show, so
True.
he could probably handle it remotely from.
I think I'll probably get fired again in like a couple weeks.
All right, so some of the other questions that Red Swirl threw out there, which we can come back to another time, because I think, especially from what you were saying, would be interesting, is does getting to play little chunks of a game all the way up to the time that it comes out spoil the fun of actually playing it?
It can.
And another thing he's interested in is so how is it really to play a game for review? So, I mean, does that really change things for you? And that's something, we could
that's a whole other discussion.
That's a whole other discussion,
that's
right?
a new kind of worms.
Because when you're playing a game and you feel like
talk.
Yeah, so when you're playing a game and you actually feel like it's work, it totally changes it, right? I mean, that was something we were talking about with Psychonauts.
That's something we've been talking about all week.
But it's something.
Well, there's so many things that can affect like your attitude towards a game, and I think playing a game, like consciously thinking, do I like this? Do I not like this? Is that good? Is that bad? Yeah, it colors it a little bit, but the people who are
you're
good
trying
at
to
it,
beat a game in like 2 days.
well, that's that more than anything
Yeah.
else. Like a PSP game, I think I remind people about this a lot of handheld games. Most people are not going to play, like right now I'm playing Ultimate Ghouls and Ghosts. Most people are not going to marathon play that over in a weekend and try to finish it. They're going to pick it up, play it for a half hour, put it down when they get tired of it. Pick it up again, put it down. I think that definitely does.
Your hand's gonna get
affect your
tired. That
review.
PSP's not too comfortable.
So we're working on trying to refine how the Pile of Shame thing works, because that certainly came into play in disrupting the whole idea. The whole idea behind Pile of Shame was we were going to actually go and play games that we had missed that we wanted to go back and play. And then, like Luke was relating to me and getting into Psychonauts, he felt like he was playing it because he had to play it. You played it because you just wanted to, right, Mark?
Well, yeah, because I wanted to, and my girlfriend works at,
you didn't
at Double
review it.
Fine, and I would never be. But I did want to play it. I was intrigued, but yeah, total disclosure. My girlfriend
Right.
did and does still work at Double Fine, so I think probably
what are we missing?
more than that. I don't think you guys are missing. I mean, your opinion is your opinion. It's valid, but I will say I think you're coming at it from the perspective now of, okay, here's this game we've heard is like the end all be all. It's incredible. It's great. And so instead of coming into it like with no expectations or like reasonable expectations, you're coming into it as here's one of the great classics of the
Overlooked classics.
Right, one of the great overlooked classics that's been universally praised. And I think when you come at something from that perspective, you're more apt to say, not add to what everyone else has already said to it. You want to say, oh well, are people noticing this? Like the gameplay does not redefine platformer gameplay. No, I would agree with that. It doesn't. If you had that expectation, I think you had some strange expectations, but it's super solid. Like, it's a great playing platformer. Like, I have no problem with the gameplay aspects of it, with the controls, with the mechanics, with that sort of thing. And also, I think, have you guys, I don't know if you guys, how much you guys have played of it. The first level, which I think you guys were more
It's more like a tutorial.
Well, I bet you guys were more entertained with that. It sounded like, and as you played a little bit more.
Once you got to the jumping around and the actual platform and the actual game part of it was great. But the part that, in addition to what Garnet said earlier, which I'll touch on in just a sec, the whole like adventure game part of it, walking around through the camp, talking to people, fetch quests,
getting the arrowheads.
Like,
you didn't.
I wasn't really into that, but I think a big part of what colored it was, like we said earlier, like I'm here all the time, and like when I'm done being here, to go home and have to play a game, that makes the whole experience totally joyless to begin with.
It's like it's work.
Yeah, well, it's like, well, when do you not work then? That's, I mean, like when we go to California Extreme.
do what you love.
Get 2 hours a week. You're allowed.
Luke.
No, but and I think also some of the later levels. I don't know if you guys saw the Milkman Conspiracy, or like if you're not in love with the game, I think by Lungfishopolis, the level where you are huge in a city of people and they're all running around. I don't know if
I'm a level away from that.
Okay,
I'm stuck.
If you're not in love with the game by that point, just put it down because I don't think you're going to love it. But like the Milkman Conspiracy levels, like once you get into some of the levels that really show off, and it doesn't take that long to get to those parts, but once you get to those parts, I mean, it's just a really unique game. The writing and the characters really show off what it has. And yeah, like I say, if you don't like it by that point, you should probably just put it down. But I bet it. If you do make it that far, I think you'll see what everybody's talking about.
Right. So Pile of Shame is not going away. What we are trying to do is work on. We've been talking about it over meetings, and we're going to keep talking about it. And you guys on the message boards can give us some input on this. How to refine Pile of Shame and keep on. It's like a Freudian slip. How to refine the Pile of Shame into something that actually works and is fun for us and fun for you guys as you're playing along or communicating with us about the game, so we can make it a more interesting segment.
I know you guys were thinking about playing God of War. I'd actually be really curious to hear you guys take on God of War, because God of War is a game that I think is good but not fantastically great.
Well, you didn't play its Master Quest version, Ninja Gaiden, either yet.
Well, that's true.
All right,
that's in my Pile of Shame.
So get on the boards. One of us can. Skip, do you want to create an official thread then for Pile of Shame suggestions? We'll create an official thread this afternoon. We'll let you guys give us some input, and we'll be coming back in a minute to get into all kinds of games, because we spent all day yesterday down at Redwood Shores with some Electronic Arts games. So Madden will be included in that, of course. So stay tuned, football fans. We'll be back in a minute.
You're listening to One Up Yours, part of the One Up Radio Network.
Hello, and welcome to the One Up Radio Network. If you know the name of the podcast you'd like to hear, press 1 now. You have selected Radio PM, starring the editors of the official U.S. PlayStation magazine. To download an episode at radiopm.oneup.com, press 1 now. To listen to a promo, press 2 now. In a world ripped apart by war, only one magazine.
Pretty nice and warm day down there yesterday in Redwood Shores.
Beautiful. It was delightful.
It was a hell of a trip coming back, wasn't it, Skip, with the fog rolling in?
It was crazy. Summers
Anyway.
here suck.
So that's Skip Pfister, and for those of you who wanted him to get a microphone,
I took Luke's,
That's
kicked him out of
right.
the room.
we threw Luke out, and he
Pried it off of.
Good riddance.
There might be a few beard hairs still on it, but
I like PR
Skips
people.
now.
They're great. Well, they help me do my job in an efficient manner.
wow. Andrew going for the shill
They're
rep.
on our side.
Like you were saying, I hopefully Luke's like slamming that Red Bull or something,
Yeah.
right? He's like, it's not on the energy.
We'll sleepy this morning.
It's not on the energy level today.
So what did you see at EA that was good?
All right, so let's move on from there. What did we see at EA?
well, the thing that excited me the most was the Half-Life stuff.
Oh man,
Definitely.
I mean,
It's awesome.
There's a lot of announcements within that one thing. So, Half-Life 2 is coming to the consoles, and it's like one of those late night infomercials. It's like, not only do you get Half-Life 2, you get to Episode 1, you get to Episode 2, you get the Portals mini game, which
How much
we
would
should
you pay
talk
for that?
about. But don't answer yet.
wait.
because you get Team Fortress 2, which looks awesome. There's
Are you
no
tired
movies
of
of it out.
squad-based games the old-fashioned way?
There's no movies of it out yet, but the Team Fortress 2 has this. It looks kind of like The Incredibles, and it had the music.
No
It's
One
like a
Lives Forever,
cell-shaded
like,
Wait,
style.
what?
Yeah,
Yeah.
It,
Dude, it was
showed the different
crazy.
classes, and it's like the sniper, and it's like dun dun dun. It played this music that was kind of like in the Incredibles style, cell-shaded, kind of cartoony, but it looks fantastic.
Totally.
Made me want to play the game.
60s theme spy.
Yeah.
like,
You know what we should do? We should sort of contest. I have in my possession a Team Fortress 2 T-shirt from E3 1998.
I know that T-shirt. I used to have that T-shirt.
That I stole from Valve's booth in 1998. All right, I still have this
How
shirt.
did you steal it?
I stole it. It was sitting there.
They gave me mine. I just asked
I
for one.
stole it, and I
Use his
still
Metal
have
Gear
it.
Solid skills.
And we should give it away as a prize for something. I don't know what. We'll figure it out.
We'll
later.
figure it out.
Yeah.
We'll put it on the boards.
Yeah,
Right.
but Team Fortress 2, not a Team Fortress fan, but that I'm like, I am going to try that game.
Oh,
It had all
definitely.
the old classes, engineer, soldier,
Demo.
Yeah, but
Okay, but you know what? I had a knee-jerk immediate reaction to this. I'm like, okay, so here go the Valve announcements. And the first thing they show me is the Portal announcement from Prey 10 years ago, and it was exactly like E3 in Atlanta. It was them
Well-
putting portals down anywhere they wanted to, and jumping through portals and having stuff come out the other
But in
side.
Prey, can you put portals down
No, you
wherever
can't.
you want to?
No,
That's
you can't.
the
Right.
difference.
Right.
Well, it's totally a difference. I'm just saying. It was like
So
that-
let's say what it is. So let's say what Portal is, like what Valve showed us yesterday. It's basically you have a gun that shoots two portal
Yeah,
holes.
the entrance
like,
and exit portal.
Yeah,
Right.
one's blue, one's red, and you can shoot them wherever you want and push things through them, and objects can fly through them, and you can jump through them yourself. So, put one on this side of the pit, shoot one on the other side of the pit, jump through the portal, you're on the other side.
Skip had the best comparison, and that was that it looked like the
Metal Gear Solid VR missions. That's what it's
That's
going to be like.
totally what it looks like.
And the aesthetic is real. It's real sparse. It's like it's set in the Half-Life world, they said, but it's kind of like a training thing. It's like Portal Corporation.
Yeah.
They had a really hilarious, they had a really hilarious video that showed
Yeah.
sort of like the international, men's room kind of icon for a guy displaying what
Yeah.
Portal was, and it slowly ramped up, and then it just went batshit insane.
They should totally release that over Steam.
Yeah, they
absolutely.
have
That
to. It
Leipzig or
showed,
something.
things going in infinite loop, like a portal on
Yeah.
the ceiling, portal on the floor, and just going
Or like falling through
it.
the floors. That was my favorite part.
Falling through the
you're
floor
chasing
and-
a guy.
yeah.
He's shooting portals. You're chasing him. You're shooting portals
Yeah.
through the floors, and it's just like an endless drop.
Is this coming out in spring?
So
No, it's
It's all dropping with Half-Life Episode 2. So that's like
Right.
that's like as
like
Gabe called
December?
it, the release vehicle.
When is that?
November.
November, December?
Well, so he
Late
said
fall.
it's also going to be on PS3. So we know
Right.
it's at least going to be into November. And
Same day as PC.
Wow.
and it's all going to be the
Pretty
same
big deal.
day.
Yeah.
And as much stuff as they're getting in there, I mean, not to be cynic again, but come on, is anyone thinking it's not going to be spring of 2007?
It's probably going to be.
Worth the wait.
yeah, I mean that was really exciting. That was a cool.
What about the Lord of the Rings RPG?
So the White Castle,
White Castle.
Lord of the
Courtesy
Rings
of
White
Scott
Castle.
Sharkey.
Yeah.
No, the White Council. Yeah. So
Gandalf and Saruman go to White Castle.
my take on that, and no one said Oblivion, of course, in the thing, but my guess on that is that it's going to be like their take on Oblivion. Like, hey, Oblivion made a ton of money. It's number one in game rankings, because they did say there's this great quest, or we want you to be able to make your own adventure. And so that, to me, in that world, says Oblivion type game, which set with Lord of the Rings, it's set before the movies, is a good idea.
It's a good decision.
But so is the Third Age, right? And
Third Age is terrible.
And the Third Age was their take on Final Fantasy. If this is their take on Oblivion, we'll see how they do. They showed FMV that looked good. They had the real actors' voices, and then at the end they add a little thing, which is, and yeah, that's what we want the game to look like. And
which is like,
I don't know about that.
Remember the GoldenEye Target video from 2 years ago?
Remember the EA Target video? I mean, or the Madden Target video.
Remember
EA doesn't
every
have the
Target
best.
video we've ever been shown?
Yeah,
It's nice that they're optimistic about it.
Target videos.
It's not going to happen.
So it's another Hot Summer Nights with another EA Target video.
Right.
Wow.
Right. And I mean,
Next.
But sometimes, like, so they showed Need for Speed running on PS3,
Oh, God.
Need for Speed Carbon, and that's like,
Oh,
maybe you
God.
should have showed us the Target video.
Really? Not so good?
No.
No.
No, the way he said it was, so he introduces it with a now, thanks to the power of PS3.
Yeah,
and
we have a special treat.
And I'm like, wow, it's great. 15 frames a second. That's awesome.
Instantly reminded me of Midnight Club.
Instantly.
The problem with it was they showed the 360 version, which is farther along before it, and it looked good. But two things. One, I saw Burnout playing in the lobby just while we were doing an interview later, and I was like, that looks way better.
Way better.
Yeah, and two, I have no doubt that game by the time it comes out is going to look way better than what we saw.
Yeah.
It was just too early.
Why did they
Shouldn't
do
have
it?
shown it. Shouldn't have shown it.
Yeah,
just
they
stick
shouldn't
to
have
the.
You're right.
Yeah, I would have just stuck to the.
And the 360 version was running really well, because that was what they had at the breakout room that I spent all the time in. And,
Right.
And although it looked like Most Wanted, it didn't have Most Wanted's frame rate slowdowns already. So that was a big plus right there.
And they didn't release that movie, and that's smart. They just wanted to, I think, to say this is. We're working on it. It's coming out on PS3. It's going to come out sooner rather than later.
My concern about Carbon, though, is that the whole thing's kind of gone intellectually bankrupt, because you had the Underground that had the identity of being the Underground tuner and all that. You had Most Wanted, where you're trying to get Most Wanted. Now you got Carbon, and I'm trying to get Carbon dated.
No,
wait, what?
The shtick of this one is you race on like mountain roads and you can fall off the edge.
That's just one part of it. But yeah, that's the shtick of it. But it's like, the guy's explaining it to me, and he literally said, well, it's like Risk, where you're trying to take over the city. And I'm like, wait
Risk
a minute.
the board game?
Yeah, like Risk the board game.
I wish that series wasn't annual. It's hard to come up with something new every year.
Right.
That's exactly
the development
what
cycle
suffers.
is short.
Essentially Need for Speed Underground 3.
It's exactly that. And it's the Most Wanted engine with the graphics fixed up for 360, where the frame rate isn't bad.
It does not look next gen enough to me.
It does not.
But
one thing that they did show that was cool is the lengths to which you can customize your car. I mean, you can sit there and morph the hood, and you can really. Cool. It's like Midnight Club, the dub options, except even more expanded, and it looked really slick on the with the next gen graphics, really sharp and stuff.
What they didn't do a good job of explaining about that is that starts with they said there's not going to be kits, but there are kits. They're all the kits from Most Wanted, and those are the starting spots that you get to start customizing from. So as you get better and better kits, more advanced kits, there's more stuff to play with. Like the first kit's hood may only have one scoop on it, but a later one might have vents you can play around with, and scoops and things that come up through the top of it.
So I'm actually curious, Garnett, what you thought of Madden for Wii, because they showed it up on stage, and I was actually like, that is pretty cool. They're doing some cool things, not graphically. I don't know. What do you think about the graphics?
Well, and let's not talk about the graphics, because the Wii's not a graphics machine.
Well,
right?
but I want to. But give us how much does it look better than GameCube? Because I don't know the games that well.
Yeah,
I thought it looked better than GameCube. I was looking at it like they couldn't have done this on GameCube. Not much better, but definitely.
I think it
marginally
looks good.
Right.
What people want to compare it to is Xbox, right? And it looks better than Xbox.
Yeah.
Okay.
Totally looks better than Xbox.
Okay. So what did you think of the stuff they showed? How they use the controller?
I have the same growing concern about that game that I have in general growing about the Wii, which is how long is it really going to be fun to play that game in that way?
Yeah.
How long am I really going to enjoy having to, flail around all the time when I want to play?
But I think the question is 30 minutes playing Madden Wii with your friend more fun than 40 hours of playing traditional Madden? Maybe if it's so different and so crazy and wild, and you have a lot of fun doing it.
And some of the stuff they showed, like batting away things, jumping up, actually picking both your your arms up to jump up. And actually, I thought the coolest thing that they had there, the thing that I think will make it like a killer app for the Wii people is when you are, you have a breakaway and you got a touchdown, is the high stepping.
Oh, that was
it's the like you like whoop it up, like throwing your arms up, and your guy starts doing all these different animations, and like I just imagine doing that right in your friend's face, and that people will love that.
I think I'll probably actually own 2 versions of the game again, which will be I'll have the Wii one for when people are over at the house to play, and then I'll have the 360 one for actually playing the game, like doing Superstar mode and all that kind of stuff. And we'll get to 360 in a minute, but like what you were saying, the part about playing it on Wii that's cool is the intuitive play. Like, you're playing, you switch to defensive backing when you just reach up with your hand, you knock the ball away.
Right.
Or when you're running and you've got the nunchuck controller in one hand and you're like maneuvering your body.
Yeah.
And then you want to like stiff arm somebody, you just take the Wii remote and stiff arm them.
Right.
It's like, it makes sense.
And the audibles, you just point to what part of your
that was the coolest
line
thing.
you want to move and click on it, and then they move.
What I think is interesting to say about this is, Mark, you and I would probably not ever play Madden 07 ever.
We wouldn't even be talking about it right now.
About it,
yeah,
but we'll try this.
Right, and we are talking about it now. Yeah, that's a good
something.
point.
But how long are you actually going to be into it just for the...
It's like saying,
Who knows?
It's like, this comic book isn't an encyclopedia. I'm very upset.
But even getting us to pick up the controller or talk about it is a start.
So Madden is also known for its encyclopedic play because that's a big part of the game. That's why it's so cool that Superstar has come back to the 360 version.
I don't care about that. I care about having fun, old man.
God. Anyway, so I mean that's what was
play
really
head
cool
coach.
to
I
me.
like that one a lot.
Head coach actually selling too, by the way. Did you see
Really?
the numbers?
I saw that.
It is.
Yeah.
Disgusting.
Like, just put it out before Madden, and whatever it is, if it's football, it'll sell.
I think people are going to be really happy with the Superstar mode in 360. I was impressed by it. I mean, the whole bit of playing from your
That thing
position,
where you like, did I see right? Or do you actually choose the mother and father of a player?
So they've had that before.
That's not new.
That's crazy. You're like genetically engineering.
You
like
are.
they're so
Like, that's
desperate
the whole
for new
idea.
things to add into it. It's like, here's his DNA sequence.
Your parents have different careers that affect.
That is just bizarre.
Yeah.
Right. So you mix and match like what heritage they had as far as like where they went to school, what they did, all that kind of stuff, and then that determines what kind of attributes you genetically would have. Like, are you the guy who's going to play quarterback, or are you the guy who's going to play tight end, or what are you most adapted to?
Okay. But sorry, I interrupted you. You guys were talking about some actual new feature.
Playing through as one position. The entire thing. That is going to be so awesome.
It's awesome. I sat there and played for like 30 minutes and of course I picked the quarterback because hell, I wanted to be the quarterback.
I was going to say though, are you really going to want to
be the right
do that?
tackle?
Like I saw the guy playing and he runs out on a play and the ball he never sees the ball. Yeah,
that's what I thought. Like, I'm going to play every 10 minutes.
Out of that shit.
That's actually one of the things I wasn't so hype about is so when your side isn't on the field, it speeds up the gameplay, but you're still watching the game. It's almost like head coach. You're watching the game.
The AI is playing.
The AI is playing, and
that could be weird.
It's a little weird. I wish there was like a sim button to it so that I didn't have to sit there and just watch all that because it is just simming it anyway. You don't have any control over it.
Yeah.
And the same thing is when you're playing the game as your position, you don't have any control over anybody else in the field. So if you're playing wide receiver, you not only do you have to fight to get open, but everything else has to go right for him to throw you the ball.
He's got to actually choose to throw to you.
Right. The AI has to see you.
I think we need to Shane. This is enough on the football talk. All right.
So what about we went to another event this week that was very different. It was, Pimps and Hoes and
the Saints Row.
40 ounces up in.
They did it up.
Well,
they had paid hose, actual hose.
I was surprised. We were talking about this event. People were actually playing the game. A lot of times you go to these events and no one's actually playing the game, but they had multiplayer set up and people were playing it.
People were playing it, and they
damn
weren't
good
getting
sign.
off. They
That is a
were
damn good
staying on the
sign for them.
machine.
Good sign.
Yeah. They were smart though. They gave you a 360 memory card when you came in that had your name and profile already set up on it. So when I walked in, I saw people like Cesar was there. I saw a guy running around, and I saw above his head was Cesar Quintero. So that
Dude,
worked.
even better than that, it was so awesome gunning down Ricardo. That was fantastic.
So
no hard feelings, Ricardo. I mean, it was just it was just fantastic.
So what did you think? What did you think of the game?
The multiplayer was
multiplayer is
cool
what we were
because
playing.
it was SOCOM Row. It was total. Wasn't
It was Brocom.
Brocom, yeah.
But it's just
Brocom.
It's a little twitchy.
It's twitchy.
I thought it was a little twitchy.
Arcadey even.
Actually, well, in the weapon switching was kind of like it's like a lot of first-person shooters where you hold down the button and then choose on the dial.
Right,
and
that doesn't work fast enough.
You kind of you stop moving while you're doing it, and that I thought was a little of the problem is twitchy. It was fun. I mean,
Right.
it was, you know, a 12-player game
Right.
or whatever it was set up. We were having a good time.
It's not
but-
trying to be the world's best shooter. You know, it's
Right.
It's like a GTA style game, and the multiplayer is just kind of an added.
I hope
feature.
there's some adjustments you can make to the sensitivity on the controls, because the draw distance is out far enough that it was having a lot of trouble moving the crosshair on. You know, you can see these guys a long way away and you can shoot them, but the crosshair was not sensitive enough to actually plant it over them to make the shot. So that was annoying as hell.
Yeah, and there were a bunch of different modes, like protect the pimp, where the pimp is kind of like the juggernaut, right? And
Also, there's collecting bling. That's one.
collecting bling.
That one worked really well. The other one they did beside that, I was surprised how complicated. First of all, I was surprised how complicated the game mode it was.
The Pimp Your Ride one? Or
Yeah, the
Car
Pimp Your
movie,
Ride.
yeah, I heard about that.
I was surprised that was in the game. I was also surprised they used a demo, because it's like this long process of each team has a car, and the car has to get upgraded periodically at the chop shop, which is in the center of town. So it's like a
Right.
two-part process. You got to earn the money by killing other team members, you know, the enemy team, and then once you have the money built up, you have to ferry the car down to the chop shop without the other team blowing it up.
Right,
And we
so-
had no clue what was going on.
That's something that when you get home and actually play it could be fun. But in that environment where people are just drinking and some people are sitting down for 5 minutes, like,
Right.
yeah, that's not the environment to play something like that. But
I think this game could be pretty big.
see, yeah, we were talking about that.
I already put it on. I'm saying 800,000. Since we've been doing sales numbers for some reason, I'll say
I think it's going to be pretty
You
big.
guys really think it's going to catch on?
I also don't think. I think this is just the beginning. I think we haven't seen the end of Saints Row.
And mysterious ...
does that mean?
And I don't know how
Statement
much
from
it's been
Shane.
brought up. One of the things that I did for a little while was I also played co-op through the single-player game, and that people love that. And it's also playable on live, and it was pretty fun. That was
Yeah, everything's more fun
That's
with a
cool that
friend.
you
Any
can do
game
it.
is more fun co-op. Seriously.
yeah, and the co-op in this is just, it's simple and straightforward. Like the level I played was like an airport that you had to get out of while the cops were assaulting. So you're like basically running from the terminal building out to the street,
Right.
mowing down policemen with your buddy.
See, but here's one thing that concerns me. So when's it coming out? They
It
said
comes
the
out
date,
in
29th.
late August.
August
August
29th.
29th. And the magazines haven't gotten the reviewable yet, right?
Right. They're kind of protecting it.
So that
Yeah.
oftentimes, not always, but oftentimes that's a cause for concern because they don't want the reviews to beat the game
But
out.
look, I think it looks decent. I mean, we'll see.
I would say from as well as it was running at a preview event, things done. I mean, there was
I heard it's gone gold already.
yeah, I mean there was no problems. There was no collision detections. There was no funky sprites. There
I
was
mean, it got
nothing
pushed
off.
back 8 months. The thing should be done.
Yeah, I think it was definitely done. All right, so we'll be back in a couple of minutes after this next break, and we'll be hitting the news. We got Luke coming back in the building, hopefully Red Bull fortified and ready to rock.
Hi, this is Jeff Green, the editor-in-chief of Computer Gaming World magazine. With me is Ryan Scott, associate editor of CGW. Say hi, Ryan.
Hi.
Ryan is held at gunpoint right now, and unless you listen to the CGW radio podcast, I'm going to shoot him. So if you want Ryan to live, please listen to the CGW radio podcast at cgwradio.oneup.com or at iTunes. Do it for Ryan. Do it for Ryan's mom.
You're listening to One Up Yours on the One Up Radio Network.
All right, this is a special announcement for the Sony Defense Force. Just be on alert because it's the Luke
SDF
Smith
one.
news power time.
Some Sony hater called me a chupacabra on a message board. I don't.
That's a compliment. That's not. That's
I don't
not
suck.
no, that's not a
I don't
compliment.
suck
Chupacabras
blood out
are
of goats.
awesome.
I've never eaten a goat in my life. All right.
Best Chupacabra thing ever was the X-Files episode.
That was a good episode.
an awesome X-Files
Did you see
episode.
Chupacabra 2 for Sci-Fi original? Really good.
You know, this is almost all Sony. There's a lot of news.
Get to it. Get to it.
thing is,
Sony's
well,
Well,
exciting.
to it. Let's start it off because
do it.
as always we should start off with something pleasant
up.
to get
Yeah.
them get your party loosened up a little
Well, I want to
bit.
start off with why I guess I've been so cranky this week is because I spent the better part of the beginning of the week reading court documents.
That's always
which
fun.
is in very small text for very large amounts
Was it
of
a
pages.
microfiche?
Oh, thankfully, this is recent enough where it's not a microfiche. There's a company called Massive Black Incorporated, and before I explain what's happening with them, Massive Black Incorporated, I hadn't heard about them beforehand either, was a company that does outsourced outsource concept art and like design work for different game developers. Like one of the things they've done is the majority from concepts to final implementation of the art in Hellgate London. They work on stuff like, you know, Killzone 2, Battlefield 2142, all kinds of stuff that they've been involved with. Well, essentially what happened was there was an internal plot to take over the company by soliciting the companies that were working with Massive Black Incorporated from their Shanghai offices. This guy named James Ji Zhang started soliciting business within the company
directly with the company, not through Massive Black,
to form a studio that would rival Massive Black by hijacking their business. So it was essentially this like toppling. There's a news story up on 1UP by the time you're hearing this that sort of explains the whole thing. And as you're going through the news story, like it's like a John Grisham book.
Right.
It's ridiculous. I talked with the president yesterday, Jason Manley, and he didn't comment at all on the court case because he can't. But just talking about the way this company was formed, it started as like an art collective in Texas of like 6 like-minded artists, and has evolved into this giant outsourcing project. An entity that works on so many games, and that like the outsourcing nature of the business isn't something that people talk about a whole lot. But then when you have like an internal takeover attempt at one of them, it's pretty interesting.
Yeah. So this is just the papers are filed.
The court papers are filed.
It hasn't gone to trial or
right now it's being filed civilly.
It is kind of an interesting thing how these different companies work on games like Tosei, which you guys talked about, Valkyrie Profile. I'd never even heard of them.
They made like 10,000 games.
And like big games, like the Mario GBA games, right? They do, but you never hear their name. You never
like Perfect Dark Zero. Like they bring on other companies to finish it. That happens a lot.
Right.
These big games, like parts of them are made by other companies. It's behind the scenes.
So the whole takeover plot is. There's no real editorializing. It's pretty much we're going through the facts, going through the court papers, looking at how this takeover was attempted. He ended up having a female cohort. Even after the two defendants were fired, the first thing she did after she was fired was jack another $50K in cash from the company and wire it to a secret account that they referred to in private notes as their piggy bank.
Nice. Like this reminds me of the whole
awesome news.
Of the whole Gizmondo affair.
It totally is like Gizmondo too.
Yeah.
Gizmondo
These things could be their own little books. Like the Gizmondo thing, especially. Well,
that was one thing I said to Jason when I was talking to him was, with all due respect, and I don't want to make light of the situation at all because it's awful, but it's really interesting.
Yeah, should make a true Hollywood.
I was like crying on the phone. You're like, this is great stuff.
I was like, can I write a book about this, like a fictional one?
Right.
So that was the beginning of my week. Has been a lot of looking into that, and it's been really interesting. And it's been in all my other like journalistic pre-gaming world endeavors, I haven't really ever had to go down to like look at court documents, and it felt
you were so excited to go to the courthouse. You're like, tomorrow I'm going down to the courthouse.
I ended up not having to go to the courthouse, and I found it all online. I used I tried to log in here.
I thought you wanted to go to the you wanted to be like in the stacks, like
I was. I was near the courthouse
when papers.
When Cesar and I went up to Microsoft. They had the thing in Eddy. On Eddy Street
you
here.
Did get near the courthouse.
I was near it. Yeah, it was like 25
I like where
blocks.
they had it. That was quality placement.
Wow. In the Tenderloin. So I guess we'll start off with some good news from Microsoft then. And we'll start off talking about that quick Xbox Live event. Xbox Live Arcade, they announced Xbox Live Arcade Wednesdays, and they sort of pre-announced it by screwing up and sending a news release out and then being like, oh, wait, no. Yeah. And they tried to retract it, and we just reported on it.
That was the happiest look you've had on your face all week.
That was the
moment you heard that.
Oh, that was the best. Oh, that was the best day of the week.
The first game is Frog, right? It's a new old game every week.
Well, it's not a new.
The first game I thought was like Funky Fred or
Frogger came out Wednesday. The second game is Cloning Clyde.
Cloning Clyde. That's
Cloning Clyde is not a classic arcade game. That's some like cell phone garbage.
No, it's like a brand new indie developed game.
Oh.
So, yeah.
Like cell phone garbage.
What we'll see on Sony's PS3 library online, like Flow. So.
Flow looks cool.
Defend that.
Oh my God! Now he's in full defense mode.
Anyway, so we talked with.
That was such a knee-jerk reaction. You don't even like Flow. You don't even know what Flow is.
Flow is cool.
She was my favorite waitress anymore. She was the best waitress in Bell's Diner in Alice. That's what that was.
So to try and get back on task, I talked with Greg Canessa, and we put an interview up on Game Videos, and I put it up in my blog, and we put it up in a news story. And Greg and I talked a little bit about the vision.
That was a good interview.
Thank you.
You could read a lot from the silences in that interview, actually.
Yeah, like Cesar cut it perfectly with the way it all, like, asking great questions like, so when's the Bungie Xbox Live Arcade game coming out? Or like, when's Geometry Wars 2, Greg? Is that this fall? Among those 20 titles that you're promising between the end of fall and, or the beginning of fall and the end of the year? Because what they're doing is promising 50 total titles by the end of the year. There's 21 titles on live right now, 22 with Frogger. They said 9 more by the time you get to fall. That leaves about 20 weeks for them to film the rest of the year. So they pretty much have to hit 1 per week. And the question that I didn't ask that I wish I had was, and maybe you can answer, Shane, what's more likely, Microsoft getting to 10 million units sold, or Microsoft getting 50 titles on Xbox Live Arcade this year?
I think 50 titles on Xbox Live Arcade is more likely, because if you split up all those old like Midway and Namco games,
they showed a lot at E3 that they're not going to take really much work.
Yeah, and there's like random arcade games that aren't even that popular, some of them.
Yeah, but I think it's smart. Like the Wednesday, every Wednesday a new game. That's smart.
Good idea.
I talked about it with you a little bit this morning, that it is a smart move to sort of establish a regular pattern for users to go, oh, it's Wednesday, what can I get on live today? And then what that'll also allow Microsoft to do, if they're smart, is promote things ahead of time to be like, and on, near the Halo Wednesday, like the Halo Tuesday, the first November, or second Tuesday in November, if you have a big title timed with that, on that Wednesday, if you keep doing things like that to establish, these time periods and make sure that you're promoting far enough in advance. And we even talked this morning about it a little bit, about how if Microsoft would now take a nod from Sony with the try before you buy, like they did with the SOCOM maps, then that would be an even better step. Like, I don't know if I want to buy Frogger, but if I download it this Wednesday,
I don't want to buy it.
Yeah, I think it has to be certain content. I think something like that is better with Graw, because if you have Frogger for a week, like that might be it. Yeah. Like that might be effectively giving it away. But the Graw content, that's smart. What they did with SOCOM, giving them for a week, then your friends get on it, you get on it, you learn to love it.
Well, maybe try it with like the new IPs then, like Cloning Clyde or like Small Arms, or these indie games that you're like, man, I don't know if I want to spend 500 points on that. Right. If I can try it for a week and if I really like it or my friends really like it.
Well, and they sort of do that with the trial version of the game a lot of times, like with Geometry Wars. It gives you a few minutes or something like that. Right. But did they announce a price for these games? Did they say all games every Wednesday are going to be?
Well, no, it's not a set price. It depends on what the game is.
Depends. Yeah, like the old games are all the same, like 500 points or something.
Okay.
But I think on these classic arcade games, the problem is that they are dripping them out. Because, like, for me, Frogger's not important. And as I sound like a hater, I mean, there's people out there who are going to be into Frogger, and that's what they want to play. But Frogger's not a game I want to play. If it was Sinistar, I'd probably be down with that. So, I mean, that was a good example. So why, if they're so easy to get out, do we need to wait just so that they can put one out every Wednesday?
But because from their perspective, because they get a hit, they get a notice every week rather than just like all released at once. I mean, they get you every Wednesday talking about.
Isn't GameTap a better service for the same type of thing, though?
Totally.
Essentially, and that's one thing that people aren't really talking about.
Yes and no. Is iTunes better than like Napster? Like, so it's kind of the same model. GameTap, you pay a set fee and then you get access to these games, but you never really own them.
But they have the library.
Right, and you're right. They have the huge library, but most people I know like iTunes rather than Napster, even though you get access to all that music, because you buy each individual song, but then when you buy it, you own it. You don't have to worry about
I think we can all agree that so far Xbox Live Arcade has dropped the ball and the library isn't there, but this is a step in the right direction.
This is a step in the right direction.
Actually, the September issue of EGM, which won't be out for like 3 weeks, but in there we have a very monumental Xbox Live Arcade announcement that is extremely exciting.
Awesome.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't think I think
you know what it is. I think you know what it is. We can't talk about it.
Right. I think probably can't talk about it. So
but
Microsoft,
okay. They need some defense because Sony's like on the tip right now, huh?
Yeah, I was going to talk more about Microsoft, but we're going to shift to Sony being the #1 brand with consumers.
Hell yeah,
number one ahead of Dell, Coke, Toyota, and Ford.
Wait, Dell is ahead of Coke?
I know, that really pissed me off. I mean, it's important that they're ahead of Pepsi, but
you know what that tells me? Like, isn't Dell not like having one of their worst periods right now? Like, Dell's going through some problems. So this is like what? This is like consumer confidence?
An online survey conducted by Harris Interactive.
For awareness, or?
The best brands.
Best brand.
Okay. And this is actually Sony's 7th year in a row of winning. Wow. 7 years of victory, Shane. How do you feel about that?
Oh, great.
Got some pride? Do you think that Sony's arrogant?
I think that what you're getting to is this interview that's on Joystick. When it's not even an interview, it's more of an assault. It's more of like, let me ask some leading, biased asshole questions.
Sometimes I think that interviews are supposed to be a little bit like assaults. Anyway, what Joystick did was Joystick caught up with Phil Harrison at the Develop Conference, which we're going to talk about in a second because Mark Rain said some interesting stuff there. And Joystick writer Conrad Quilty Harper asked Phil Harrison if he felt that Sony was arrogant, responding to the Jeff Minter comments from last week. And Phil said, no. He said, he gave like the flat company no answer and got pressed on it and still said, I think that those quotes were taken out of context. And then the Joystick writer said, but Kaz Hirai said that Microsoft is copying Sony at every step of the way. And then Phil Harrison said, I think you're taking that quote out of context. And then Conrad Quilter Harper, as the story goes, shut off his tape recorder and said, thanks for that. And this is where it gets a little bit gray and fuzzy and sort of, this is the part that you just need to, sort of
filter it.
Yeah, you have to filter it a little bit.
You got to filter it.
Because Harper says that Phil Harrison was like, well, those were nice questions, sarcastically. Those were positive questions. Yeah. And it leads to greater issues that we've touched on a little bit before, so we won't beat the horse any more than we already have. But if everything that the Joystick article says is true, then to see executives expecting a certain kind of question and then being put off when they're not getting a certain kind of question, that's probably a problem.
Well, this wasn't, if you read the story, it wasn't an interview. He walked up to the guy after his thing. There wasn't a conduct interview. He just walked up and asked these leading questions. I think Phil Harrison reacted the way he should have.
Well, I think this is much ado about nothing I think the questions were totally fair, and I think Phil Harrison is kind of arrogant, and Sony is kind of arrogant, but you know what? We want them to be arrogant. You know how much fun it is when people aren't arrogant? Like, who was in Reggie's Nintendo's position before Reggie? What was his name?
What's his face?
Nobody knows.
Exactly.
Because
that's the point.
Because who cares?
Right.
And Shane Kim, like, how many scintillating Shane Kim interviews have you heard? Because he's not arrogant. I mean, he's
not
a fine guy. Apparently, he's really good at the Microsoft people are all really enamored with him. But you kind of want that. Like, you want people not sitting back and taking it and like, oh, we admire this. Peter Moore, also very arrogant. Reggie, very arrogant. They believe in their side and they're gonna fight for it. I think him saying, well, those are positive questions, isn't so much. I mean, that's just kind of a whatever. That's just like a thing. That's not like a big deal that he said that. You're right. Those are perfectly valid questions.
I'm saying this isn't like a reporter came up and had his interview. This is like a fan site kid coming up and asking these questions.
Well,
what the hell are you? You're totally discrediting the guy because he works for Joystick.
I think
I'm discrediting because like this story is made to make Phil Harrison look bad.
Whatever.
I don't think
Phil Harrison does a fine job of making himself look bad.
I agree with Garnet.
Those are perfectly fair questions to ask Sony at this point in the game, and I think it's actually a good opportunity for Phil Harrison to say what he wants to say, to put his thoughts on.
You know what Phil Harrison's problem was when they called him on Running the Smack, he didn't shove it right back down his throat. That was the problem. What he needed to say was, you know what, that's right, we are arrogant because we're freaking number one and you're not, so shove off.
That would have been
when you back down and start acting like this, it's like, oh, you know what, I am a prick, but I don't really want to admit to it. No, I mean, and I'm not saying it, by the way, just to clarify, I'm not saying that Phil Harrison is a prick. He's obviously a very good executive. I come off a little strong there, but the point is, if you're going to be in that figurehead position, the Peter Moore or the Shane Kim or the Reggie or Phil Harrison, that's your job. You're the front man, and you keep at it, and you say, yes, we are number one, and we are the best. And to be upset because some guy comes up to you and asks you questions that confront you with that.
I don't think he really got upset.
That should be a golden opportunity.
I don't think Phil Harrison, is more apt to joke at you. If you lob him softballs, he's gonna make fun of you more than if you ask him those questions.
For sure.
I mean, I think it was a big thing made out of what he said afterwards.
Yeah, it is much ado about nothing. Yeah, it is.
Totally.
Spending too much time on it.
Agreed. So, Next.
Well,
is it much ado about nothing to be arrogant when you're not producing cell chips and array diodes in time to release your console? Because that's what I'm reading now. Is that there's a low chip yield on the cell chip, which makes sense, and that's not. I didn't invent that. I didn't get that from the Inquirer. That's from IBM, the company that is making the cell chip. And so you're having these low yields, and then another report from
Is it low yields because like there's a high defective percentage? They're really hard to make.
It's an extremely complicated chip to make. And in order for it to work, in order to have a final chip that works, like 7 of 8 SPEs or something need to be active in the chip. So anytime you get a yield where you're not getting an 87% activity on these like 7 things,
let's just say it's complicated and leave it at that.
The chip is like a new, smaller process. Like it's never been like it's a new
right.
It's a new kind of chip.
Whole new way of making chips. But so are they saying here's what we thought, where we thought we'd be, here's where we are?
Well, I mean, the thing is, like, anyone who knows about the way technology works is it doesn't start off working it doesn't start off working well. The same thing happens with chip production. Like your typical yield on like chips that are being produced correctly and like the technology's been mastered, it's like 90%. New tech chip yield is normally like 40 to 50%. So they're a little under where they should be. It takes them a little while to get it down.
Yeah. The PC process went through the exact same thing when they dropped to 90 nanometer process. They had the same culling period.
So what does this mean? Like, let's cut to does this mean less PS3, even less than they're saying?
Potentially, because the Blu-ray diode isn't as big of a deal, because what Sony's harvesting from their Blu-ray diodes are going to essentially going to a cache that they're just saving them all for PS3, which is why you're seeing Sony's Blu-ray player delayed further, because what they are harvesting, they seem to be focusing on PS3. I asked Sony if they were going to still make their $2 million up front, $2 million launch ship, and they said we don't respond to rumors or speculation. So,
well, that's a good answer. I mean, what are they supposed to say?
I don't know. I would say we are very concerned that IBM said that we're not getting enough cell chip yields.
That would probably be like throwing gas on.
That would be gas on fire, and that would do all kinds of panic response.
It's not over for Sony at all. Like, I think that they'll probably have 1 million units ready this fall, but it's over for UMDs.
Yeah, I actually
he's been practicing his segues.
It hurt me because I sent you that story yesterday, and
with something like
if I don't tell you this, you're going to hear it from someone else.
Yeah. Well,
you go.
We reported earlier this week that Target was in fact pulling UMDs from shelves. They are going to be selling UMDs.
UMD video.
UMD video.
Not UMD games.
Yeah. Well, I mean, no one buys those anyway.
So which is going to be hurt worse, the PSP when UMD fails or the PS3 when Blu-ray fails?
In Sony's eyes, when Blu-ray fails.
So we're talking about UMD failing as a movie format, right?
Right.
Okay,
yeah.
So who at this table cares?
I watched Spider-Man, which came with my PS3.
Right. How many have you bought?
I'd already seen it.
What's funny is when UMD video first happened, they were like saying, "Oh, this is a huge success. It's being adopted like 10 times faster than DVD was adopted." But it quickly sloughed off, and nobody was buying these things anymore.
So the Target's clearing out shelf space. It'll be at a warehouse online.
Well, and it is. You go to Best Buy and you see the National Lampoon's Van Wilder on you. I mean, you see that actually is probably more to the PSP audience, but you see these movies that have no business being on UMD.
Right. Like
and it was
Hitch,
just everyone added them.
Hitch is a huge hit. Made like $100
The Grudge.
I wish John,
State of the Union.
I wish John were here because I think he would point out, and I'd love to, he might know. No, because he might know. Great. He would be tuned into this kind of thing, which is whatever happened to the home players.
Well, they never materialized. It's not a good format for watching movies at home.
And doesn't that? And if a UMD is costing you as much as a DVD,
that's the problem.
You can't see it on your home theater,
and there's no program like you buy the DVD, it comes with the UMD, or you get the UMD for $5 or vice versa.
Well,
they really should have implemented
Target
something
backing out of UMD video is one thing, but Sony having their own vote of no confidence is a much more dire circumstance, and that is what's happening.
Yeah, the UMD flops as a video format, but Sony's going to try memory sticks. And that's why I just mentioned Hitch, SWAT, The Grudge, and XXX State of the Union. Because if you buy... Sony now is going to put 4 videos on a memory stick, and you can get one of them for free to watch. And it'll come on a DVD, and you switch it over. And so you'll be paying for a 1 gigabyte memory stick for $60, or a 2 gigabyte memory stick for $100, with one of these 4 movies for you to enjoy.
Right.
And those were Hitch, SWAT,
once again,
The Grudge, and XXX State of the Union.
Mark, you and I have been talking about we want to watch State of the Union.
We will watch XXX State of the Union. We will not watch it on a PSP.
I like
memory
XXX,
card or UMD. We had a drinking game from the last last one.
Think PlayStation.
That involved, every explosion.
Every explosion. They show most explosions.
You got
from 5 angles.
But I think the larger problem of this, like we were talking about earlier, so it's kind of like a little training wheels for you to like, hey kids, here's how you put movies on your UMD or on your PSP memory stick. The problem is they still don't have a real nice, easy way of doing that. Like we do the 1UP show, and it's downloaded X amount of times. The amount of people that watch that on their PSP is like below 1%. It's tiny because it's a pain in the butt. There's no iTunes like service where you just hook your PSP up to your computer and then it takes care of everything, and it's Sony done, and you pay. It's real simple, it's easy, clean interface. They should have had that day one with music, with video, with whatever. Yeah, I mean, like that doesn't bode well for the PS3, and the reason that I've heard that it's that way is because the movie division is here, the music division is here, the entertainment division is here, and like they just never meet up. The same reason they didn't come out, with the iPod before Apple did. They had it, it was there, but they couldn't connect with the online side, couldn't connect with the hardware side, couldn't connect with the Sony Music side. So I don't know. I don't see this as a good way of getting that to happen. I think they need to release like a nice, clean service.
PSP 2, fall 2008
or sooner.
Woo, dun dun dun. With 2 analog sticks?
Probably not.
Come on.
No.
With one that works well?
I will say
with no
signs point
no
to
media.
no.
My square button finally went out playing Ultimate Ghouls and Ghosts. Have you guys all had that happen to your PSP? I thought mine was special.
I didn't play mine enough for it to go out.
Yeah, though this is the first time I've actually hit the square button enough for it to happen, but I think it will happen if you have a first-gen PSP, and it makes me very sad.
Is that weird switch the way they had it?
It's just, where it is, because it's close to the screen. First-gen
We talked about it a little earlier, so we'll get back to it now. Mark Rain from Epic, at the end of the Develop conference, talked about how, well, it was like he talked about how video games should be more like blockbuster movies and less like episodic television shows, and he's campaigning here against episodic content because of the dangers of the model, and he specifically sort of takes aim at Valve with their Half-Life 2 episodic model.
Because they're the only ones really.
Yeah, well, it's like 6 months, $20 for a game. And one thing that concerned me about it was that Mark Rain was talking about how it's less risky to do it the old-fashioned blockbuster way, and that just seemed like...
Valve was saying the opposite thing yesterday. I mean, they were really making a case. They were restating, I guess, their case for episodic content, where it was like, we can incorporate feedback from users almost immediately. It gives them a chance to try out new things. They can iterate the technology, and they were already showing some new things. So what's Mark Rain's problem with it? Is it the price to the time waiting, or what is the...
It says that franchise fatigue will set into these episodic games if they don't shorten the time between episodes.
And I completely agree with him.
That's
100%.
interesting.
I mean, it is, if we're sick of Need for Speed with one a year, we'd be even sicker with 6 of them a year.
And imagine paying $20 for a snippet of it to wait 6 months, to pay $20 for another snippet of it to wait 6 months, and that's if they can make the 6 month time frame. Skip and I have talked about this a bunch of times. Episodic is not the problem. It's the manner in which it's being approached. It's not being approached like episodic content that works, which is TV shows. That's the model that works. You create a season so that you have enough content that you can keep coming back to the person and telling them the story and having them a reason to come back. It's just like the Xbox Live Wednesdays things. Give me a reason to come back in a week or 2 weeks and get the next step and the next step.
But it would almost, in order to do it that way, like practically, you'd pretty much have to have the game finished.
You would have to
then just eke it out week by week.
You would have to build a substantial part of it. And then you could do it like, well, we were talking about. It's like you could do it like television production. So say you're going to run like a 12-episode season. You could build 6 of them, then start releasing them and build the final 6 while the first 6 are being released.
Well, see, I think it depends on the franchise, and it depends a lot on the genre of the game. Because Half-Life, how long do people have to wait between Half-Life 1 and 2?
Half-Life is an exception. How many?
And so it was a way of answering, and I don't think people are unhappy with getting the. Of course, everybody wants it sooner. But it's like, okay, would you rather wait 5, 6, 8 years to get your next 15-hour experience, or would you rather get every 6 months get 5 hours?
That's my concern about Valve and Half-Life leading the charge, is that Half-Life is an exception to every other game out there. Half-Life is a game that you would wait that long for, that it would be special for you like that. But
Right. I mean, I don't think you could
What
do
other
it
game
with every
would be
game.
like that? Like, if it was Time Splitters, would you want to see Time Splitters gone episodic? Would you be like, oh man, I got to get that next Time Splitters episode? You know?
I don't even think, oh man, I got to get that next Time Splitters.
Well,
But I
an
think
exception
it
to
can
the rule.
work
It's not a-
differently with different genres. Like, I don't know, maybe an RPG would work good that way. You know, every 2 months or something. I mean, I think if you do it every week, it begs the question: well, why didn't you just release the whole thing at once? Like, are you trying to get us to pay more money for it? Or are you trying to, you know, what are you really going to do in the week between?
Right.
How much tinkering can you do?
It's still kind of in its infancy. We just gotta wait and see on it. I don't know.
Well, the one to watch then will be Sin, because Sin is the one who's actually doing episodic content, because there is no predecessor game that you're coming from. Half-Life episodic content is really more like Half-Life expansion packs that are being distributed every so often, because you already know what happened in Half-Life 2. They're building on that engine. They're completing that story. Sin, you know, there was a game a few years ago, but now it's an entirely new storyline starting off from the first episode. So watching that content and how well that performs will be a much better acid test for episodic content.
The last thing I want to leave on a happy note, and this is happy for you, Shane.
You sounded happy all the time. That's why I had to kick in and try and get some energy and line up there and sound stupid, like almost insulting Phil Harrison.
Microsoft admits trouble in Japan. And I feel like it's almost
shock.
It's almost. It might be at this point almost an admission of defeat. And this is Microsoft's the president of Microsoft in Japan and CEO Darren Houston said during a company event, "I can't say I'm brimming with confidence."
Yeah, you know, after in 7 months selling fewer units in Japan than they did the first week for Xbox One, I'd say time to.
Right.
Bail out.
Yeah. This isn't really news. This is as much as like an opportunity for Shane to kick Microsoft while they're down. I mean,
what's newsworthy about it though is that Microsoft all along has been sort of towing the company line on Japan's very important to us. It's essential. We're going to be better this time. We promise. And it's just the Japanese consumer is not impressed.
Okay, so right now, Mistwalker, the revival, happening, not happening?
I mean, they're going to come out. Blue Dragon's going to come out.
And the other two games?
Probably.
Any impact or just a...
Minor. Very minor impact in Japan. I think Blue Dragon would do better here. A lot better here. So...
Yeah.
But I think they could basically write off Japan at this point.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost like...
Isn't Japan Wii country anyway?
It's going to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, you saw that poll, like the Famitsu poll, where it was, I want to say, like 75% of people were excited about the Wii.
Well,
PS3 was like 14.
When 90% of the hardware being sold in Japan is DS, I think that tells you where like the excitement is. Yeah.
It's scary.
Yeah, right.
If DS is any model, the Wii...
Setting it up for the three-continent war. Europe.
This fall is going to be exciting times.
It's going to be like Chrome Hounds.
We live in exciting times.
It's going to be a lot more exciting than Chrome Hounds.
All right, well, we made you wait till the end of the show today, but we do have a question of the week lined up for you. And actually, I was listening to last week's show and realized that we kind of had our question of the week lined up, and we just kind of let it fall without even getting to it. So we were in a big way last week talking about the importance of storytelling in games and humor, and we brought up Psychonauts as one a big part of it. So here's a question of the week for this week: how much does writing and narrative in the games actually matter to you guys, and how do you want it built into your games? And if you want to dig into a specific point, John was really interested in the humor aspect of games, and so if you want to get into the specifics of it, how much do you want humor in your games?
Yeah, I think real quick, just an interesting aside to that. I don't know if Luke, if you remember in the Halo 2 making of documentary, they talk about some crazy percentage of people skip every cutscene, and they still kind of wanted them to know what was going on in the story. But I'm curious, how many people out there? There must be a large percentage of them. We sit there and watch through every cutscene, but a lot of people just skip every cutscene. It's just get me back to the game.
Boards.oneup.com, and until next week, we're out.
This has been One Up Yours, a production of the Ziff Davis Game Group and part of the One Up Radio Network. One Up Yours is hosted by Garnet Lee and John Davison, produced by Andrew Pfister and Mike Ing, and is published every Friday afternoon at podcasts.oneup.com and at the iTunes Music Store.
What's up? I'm not in the fucking credits?